Hey, welcome back to another MyLO video. It's been a minute since I've done one of these videos, and which is relevant to the topic today because we're almost halfway through the year now, and this is going to be basically a recap of one of my first videos, which was of a market forecast for this year. So I'll bring up my screen here. I wanted to show you what's happening with the rates, real estate, and the looming recession that we're going to be seeing. So let's get into it. The first thing I wanted to tell you is what actually moves mortgage rates. So first off, inflation is the number one cause for rates to go up. So we've been seeing inflation creep its ugly head, where you're paying more at the pump, you are paying more in food, and everything's costing more nowadays. Inflation is also an enemy of mortgage rates, where now the dollar doesn't go as far with lending somebody money. So if it costs more for a lender to lend somebody money because it doesn't go as far, then we have to build it into the rates there. So number one reason why the rates have gone up is inflation. Secondary is Fed hikes and the balance sheet runoff. Now, in this particular moment here, Fed hikes are actually good because what it's doing is trying to combat the inflation that's happening right now. But at the same time that they are increasing the Fed funds transfer rate, which helps to combat inflation, they're also selling off all the mortgage-backed securities that they purchased during the pandemic, and which would really help stimulate the economy and the real estate market. But they're selling it off now. So because they're selling it off, they're selling off their portfolio. This is hurtful to rates because now they're flooding back into the market as a bunch of mortgage-backed securities, which means that they're lower value, and that actually causes the rates to go up. And then the other aspect that has an influence on the rates is a recession. A recession is always good for rates. Sounds counterintuitive, but it is. So let's get into it. In that first video, these are basically the same slide. So I'll show you the pattern. I'll go through this really quickly, but back in the 80s when inflation was super high, to give you an idea of inflation is about 8 or 9% right now. So 7 and went all the way up to 14%. So rates went from 12 to 18%. The Fed funds transfer rate went from 11%, which is super high already, to 20%. After they hiked the Fed funds transfer rate, went from 14 to 5% on inflation, which is great. It worked. So, and then what happened to mortgage rates? They followed the inflation, went down from 18 to 12%. So the consequences of hiking a Fed funds transfer rate is that it slows down the economy. So you'll see that the S&P went down 30%, which then caused a recession. Alan Greenspan in 99-2000, we did the same thing. Inflation went up. Mortgage rates went from 7 to 8.5. Fed's funds transfer rate was increased by Greenspan from 4 3/4 up to 6.5. Then the inflation response went from 3.5 down to 1%. And just to give you an idea, 1 to 2% is a healthy inflation for this economy. The mortgage rates went from 8.5 to 5.5%, a 3% drop. So that's great. But again, S&P down 50%, and then recession followed. Okay, Jerome Powell. This is today. We went from 1.5 healthy inflation to 8.5%. And mortgage rates went from 2.5 to 5. We've seen 5.5 as well. And then the Fed funds transfer rate went from like 0 to 3% as what's expected by the end of this year. So inflation, if we look back in history, should drop. and then the rates will follow. And the consequences are that we're definitely going to see it in a recession. I'm going to say likely going to see, but we're more than likely definitely going to see that. More than likely, definitely, yeah. Okay, so so this is a graph that shows the Fed fund hikes and when they sell off their mortgage-backed securities. So you'll see here that anytime the Fed funds hike the rate, that the result is that the rates drop, and then anytime they sell off their balances, they go up. So we see this time and time again. Now, this we're like I said earlier, we're seeing them hike the rate to stop inflation, and then at the same time they're selling off their bonds. So it's a really tough balance that they have to achieve, but the goal is to do both, because they have too much tied up in too much money tied up in the mortgage bonds, but they also have to slow the economy down to curb inflation. So what happens to mortgage rates during recessions? Then this goes back 50 years, back to 1972. So we see that anytime that the rates are going up and then a recession hits, you see that in the yellow, recession hits, the dark bars are recessions, you see that the rate comes back down. Recession, the rate falls. Recession, rate falls. Recession, rate falls, all the way to 2020 here. Yeah, history shows us that this will more than likely happen again. All right, so what happens to housing during recessions? So during a recession, this goes back even further to 60 years ago. Anytime that there was a recession, this dark bar here, we see the Case-Shiller National Housing Price Index, meaning like the appreciation in homes. It goes up. So a recession hits, and the market does just fine every time. And the only time that there's an anomaly from this is in 2008, when it was bad mortgages that got people loans into homes that they couldn't afford, and that crashed the whole housing market. But otherwise, every recession that hits is always good for housing. So those of you that are sitting on the fence, maybe 2020 and 2021 were terrible years to shop for a home because everybody was trying to buy a home with the super low rates. Get back on the horse, because this market is changing, and we will be seeing it a lot easier for buyers to buy homes. Record low inventory. So in 2007, right before the crash, is when we had the most houses on the market. We had 3.7 million homes on the market. This, in combination of bad loans being given to people who, 0% down, bad credit, not even looking at income and asset documents, getting into a home and not having any money, having any skin in the game, it just caused everybody just to walk away from homes. So that's what really hurt the market there. At the same time, that huge housing crash happened, so did the stock market, everything, and there was, new construction had to halt their construction. So not enough homes were being built after that. So you see this steady decline in homes being put on the market and new homes being built. Come 2020 and 2021, where everybody's out there trying to buy homes, this really it makes it even lower. So, and people wanting to keep their homes because it's appreciating like crazy. So there's not many people who are trying to sell their home right now too during this time. So we hit a bottom pretty much of 870,000 homes on the market nationwide. And if our average is 2.5, and that's a healthy market, that's a bad sign. That's why there was tons of offers on homes. That's why there was such a fight to buy a home. Now, what's happening as well is there's a growing number of households. So I'll show you I think the next slide here will show you basically in 2007, even though we had record 3.7 million homes on the market, there was 116 million households in the nation. So we have grown since then, population, and now there's nearly 130 million households that we need to take care of. And there's almost 3 million fewer homes because of that. So this next slide is a population by age. In the 80s and 90s, the population was growing like crazy. We were having a bunch of kids. And now those kids are the main generation of people buying homes right now. So this is on top of the supply and demand that we're kind of going through right now. So to conclude this video, I wanted to look back at the video I made at the beginning of this year, showing you what the forecast was going to look like and what it's doing right now. So I forecasted that the rates would climb because of inflation, and we'll see a look back at the mortgage-backed security market, and we see that starting in March, when we had a huge sell-off, the mortgage-backed securities lost value, which means the rates go up. And we really didn't see much, except for when the Fed funds hiked the rate. So it happened here, and we had some improvement. Then it came back down, and we've kind of been sitting in this area for a while. But May 5th is when the second time they raised the rate. And it was actually a really a decently priced 50 bips hike, and they actually had a huge improvement on the market. We've had pretty much a leveling off, if you see, throughout this period, and even in a slight improvement in last week there. So this is going to continue to happen. I think that we may or may not see rates hit 6%, but that may be the highest they go. As long as inflation is being controlled by these Fed funds transfer hikes, and the recession is hitting, more people are going to put money back into mortgage-backed securities, which is a safer investment. And when that happens, we'll see the rates come back down again. So this video is to help motivate you as a buyer, because maybe you were in the market in 2020 and 2021 and you were just out there competing with a whole bunch of other people, multiple bids, offers and stuff like that, not getting accepted, and it's discouraging. But the market is changing because there are more homes going on the market, and you're not going to have so much of a bidding war, and a lot of buyers are kind of taking a back seat right now, because you hear all in the media about housing crashes and everything like that, which is definitely not true. There's too much equity in people's homes, and that we're not going to have any kind of housing crash like we saw in 2008. So don't listen to that hype, and that's just for ratings. But there are people that are going to listen to that and take a back seat. So get back on the horse. I'm telling you, this is a good time for you to jump back in the market. Even though the rates are higher right now, get into the house and then refinance when the rates are lower in about a year or so. A house is a wonderful investment, and you will kick yourself for not jumping on it sooner. I hope this video has been helpful in any way. If it has, please do like, subscribe, and share this video. I'd love to help you and your loved ones get into a home, be able to finance it, make a great investment, make it your own, and so on. So, thank you very much for watching.